Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhamvitamsha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhasya Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So welcome back to the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the nectar of devotion summary study. We have been discussing the second part of the second wave, that is Raganuga Bhakti. Up till now, we have discussed the definition of Raganuga Bhakti. And in that context, we discussed what is Ragatmika Bhakti. And this Ragatmika Bhakti is of two types, Kama Rupa Ragatmika Bhakti, Sambandha Rupa Ragatmika Bhakti. The scriptural proof for Kama Rupa and Sambandha Rupa is from the 7th canto, Narad Muni's verse, Gopa Kamat, Kamsat Bayat, that verse he proves. And then he gives some clarification how Gopa Kamat refers to Kama Rupa Ragatmika Bhakti and Sambandha Vrishnaya. Sambandha Vrishnaya refers to actually the Vrishnis of Vraj, because only Ragatmika Bhakti is found in Vraj. So after giving this proof, then further clarification about, do they attain the same destination? No. Brahmalayam. So the enemies attain Sayujya, merging in the Lord's body, whereas those who are dear devotees of the Lord, they attain the Lord's lotus feet. So after discussing, then he comes to further describing what is Kama Rupa Ragatmika Bhakti and Sambandha Rupa Ragatmika Bhakti. And based on these two types of Ragatmika Bhaktis, there are two types of Raganuga Bhaktis. Ragatmika Bhakti is Siddha Bhakti and Raganuga is Sadhana Bhakti, because we are still discussing Sadhana Bhakti. And we can understand that Sadhana Bhakti in the Raganuga stage, Vaidhi Raganuga Bhakti, Vaidhi Sadhana and Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti is how exalted it is, right? So yesterday we finished that discussion that because there are these two types of Ragatmika Bhakti, Kama Rupa and Sambandha Rupa, there are two types of Raganuga Bhakti. Now who will answer which are the two types of Raganuga Bhakti in sadhakas? What are the two types? Anyone raise your hand and answer. Which are the two types of Raganuga Bhakti? I think I'll have to ask now devotees. Let me choose. I think Pooja Soni Mataji is here. Is she there? Yes, Dhanalakshmi Mataji. Yes.
Krishna Prabhu. It is Kamarupa Raganuga Bhakti and Sambandha Rupa Raganuga Bhakti.
Kamarupa Raganuga, or how do you exactly say it? See, I'll just give you a clarification. Raganuga means to follow the Ragatmikas.
Yeah.
So in Ragatmikas, there is Kama Rupa Ragatmika Bhakti and Sambandha Rupa Ragatmika Bhakti. So the Raganuga sadhakas, how will be they addressed? Anuga should be there. Na? Anuga means to follow the eternal associates. Na? So what are these two types of Raganuga Bhaktis?
Ragatmika Anuga Bhakti or?
No.
Okay. Okay, bro.
We are still struggling with the terminologies. Yes. Yes, Nitya Sivini Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandvat Pranam. Kamanuga, Raganuga Bhakti and Sambandhanuga Rupa, Sambandhanuga Raganuga Bhakti.
Yes. So, Kam Anuga, following the Kama Rupa Radha Bhakti is called as Kamanuga Raganuga Bhakti, and then Sambandhanuga. Sambandha Anuga. Anuga means to follow.
Yes.
Follow, right?
Yes.
So, I think now we are getting clear idea about these things, right? So let us now go to the slides.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes. You have a question?
This is Pooja Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Sorry, Prabhuji, but I was screaming, so I didn't unmuted it.
Okay. Yes. So now let us go to the. Yes, we were here yesterday. That because there are these two types of Ragatmika Bhakti in the Siddha Bhakti, there are two types of Raganuga and Sadhana Bhakti, Kamanuga and Sambandhanuga. Yesterday we saw this slide. I hope now it is more clear. Kamanuga will follow the Kamarupa, that is Madhuriras, conjugal love. Sambandhanuga will follow the Sambandha Rupa Ragatmika, eternal associates. Nanda Maharaj, Yashoda in Vatsalya, and the elderly Gopas also. And then, Sri Dhama, Sudhama in Sakya, and Chitrak and Raktak in the Dasya. Kamanuga will follow the Gopis, Braj Devis. Okay. Now, qualification for Raganuga Bhakti. Yes. Now, what is the adhikar to practice Raganuga Bhakti? This is the theme. Now, actually, till now, there is Ragatmika Bhakti discussed, but it was important to discuss because Raganugas follow Ragatmikas. So we'll have to know who are these Ragatmikas and what are these different types of Ragatmika Bhakti, Kama Rupa, Sambandha Rupa. All this was discussed by Rupa Goswami. And then now we know Raganuga has these two divisions, Kamanuga and Sambandhanuga. So now it comes to the main topic of discussion of Raganuga Bhakti, that is qualification. Tatra Adhikari. Ragatmika Eka Nishtaye Vrajavasi Janadaya Tesham Bhavyaptaye Lubdha Bhavet Atra Adhikarivan. That person who is greedy for attaining a bhav. Ye bhava aptaye lubdha. Lubdha means greedy. This is spiritual greed, but not material greed. We have some idea of material greed, but spiritual greed comes with the purification of the heart also by doing sadhana bhakti. Similar to that of the inhabitants of Vraj. Vrajvasi Janadaya. He wants that same bhava, emotion, mood of the Vrajvasis. He has greed to obtain that mood. We know greed when there is a Mahaprasadam festival and there is Mahaprasad and some special prasad is being given to some other devotee. in his plate, then we have a greed. I also want that special halwa or whatever is specially given to in that plate. I also want that. Greed is there. So similarly, the spiritual greed we develop to develop a similar mood of the inhabitants of Vraja. Now, these Vraja devotees are what? Who are fixed solely in Ragatmika Bhakti. Ragatmika Ekanishtaye is qualified for Raganuga Bhakti. Atra Adhikarivan Bhavet. He is Adhikari. He has Adhikar for practicing Raganuga Bhakti. He can practice Raganuga Bhakti, which can be Kamanuga or Sambandhanuga. It's common for both. But the greed is there in the mood. It can be either, Madhurya, Vatsalya, Sakya or Dasya. Based on that, it will change. Okay. Having described the characteristics of Ragatmika Bhakti of the Siddh Bhaktas, the author now describes the characteristics of Raganuga Bhakti of the Sadhakas. He who is greedy to attain a bhav similar to that of the people of Raj, who are fixed in Ragatmika Bhakti, is qualified for Raganuga Bhakti. This is Vishwanath Chakra Thakur's commentary. Of course, this is again a vast topic, which again cannot be dealt here. So, further in another verse of Bhakti Rasamrita, that is the next verse, Rupa Goswami makes it still more clear. What is that bhav? Tat tad bhavadi madhurya shrute dhira yad apekshate natra shastram na yuktim cha tallobat patti lakshanam. The appearance of that greed is indicated. We all heard that he is greedy. Now, maybe whether I have that greed, let me see. So what is that symptoms of that appearance of the greed? The appearance of that greed is indicated tad lobha upapatti lakshanam. What is that appearance? What is the lakshana? What is the symptom? When the intelligence does not depend. Yad dhi na apekshate. Dhi refers to intelligence. Doesn't depend on what? On rules of scripture and logic. Shastram cha yuktim cha. How? When it happens? After realizing to some degree the sweetness of their love through the process of hearing from scriptures. Tat tad bhavadi madhurya shute. So how does that greed appear? We understand when the intelligence doesn't depend on what? Rules of scripture and logic. Na shastram, na yuktim. This is the first thing. Second is, to some degree, we have understood the sweetness of the love of the inhabitants of Raj. And we have understood that sweetness of love of the Vrajvasis through how? Through hearing. Tat bhav madhuri. Madhuri means sweet. Shute, the sweetness. By hearing the sweetness to some degree, we have heard it. So here is just in this graph it is mentioned, we hear the pastimes, and hearing these sweet pastimes, we develop greed. And there is decrease in scriptural regulation. Now, this is not like a sudden 180 transition. Slowly it happens. Slowly the greed to hear these pastimes, to hear from exalted sannyasis or from the Bhagavatam books like the 10th canto, slowly that greed develops, and with the increase in the greed, slowly the intelligence is getting purified. This is one thing which we should understand. The intelligence is getting purified, the subtle body is getting purified, and then slowly what is happening? Now we are impelled more by greed to practice our bhakti or to practice our bhajan or to do our shravan, more because of greed. Oh, I would like to know these pastimes. Let me go and attend this class, or let me go and study this deeply. It's not that, if I don't do my sadhana of everyday study, then I will, not be able to maintain my consciousness, because his intelligence is quite purified. Subtle body purification has happened to quite to quite extent, you can say. So that is how it is a gradual process, it happens. And then that's why it is mentioned here to some degree, not like full degree. Then slowly the adhikar to practice Raganuga Bhakti comes. Okay, let us hear Jiva Goswami's commentary. When a person realizes to some degree the sweetness of the love and the activities of the inhabitants of Raj through hearing from the scriptures such as Bhagavatam, which describe these Siddha devotees, his intelligence may develop disregard for the injunctions of scripture, shastram, and logic, though logic is certainly employed. Now, Jiva Goswami is clarifying. It's not that once he develops greed, doesn't care for Shastra, doesn't care for logic. No, logic is certainly employed, but injunctions, when you have to understand the injunctions, oh, what this injunction means, I have to apply my intelligence, understand the injunction, and then follow the injunction. That is required in Vaidhi Bhakti. But in Ragan Bhakti now, he just wants to follow the Ragatmika Bhaktas out of greed. Now, note, to make any sense of scripture, logic must be used to understand the meaning of the statement. As well, where there are contradictions in scripture, logic must be used to bring about a conclusion. So it's no, logic is certainly employed. In fact, you will have to more employ logic in order to study Raganuga Sadhana. There are books on Raganuga Sadhana which we'll have to study, like the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the Upadeshamrit, and there are other various books written by the present acharyas and the previous acharyas. So you will require scriptural logic to understand what is Raganuga Bhakti. But there is lobe, you are impelled by spiritual greed to attain that mood. That is pushing you to practice your bhakti, not the rules and regulations. Okay, Vishwanath Chakra Thakur. One can infer lakshanam that greed has arisen in a person from recognizing this symptom. Greed is a lakshan. Nevertheless, it is not possible to say that the condition described is the real essence, swarup of that greed, since that greed does not always include disregard for scriptural injunctions and logic as a necessary component. So it's, same statement what Jiva Goswami has made, but, it does not include disregard for scriptural injunctions and logic as a necessary component. Now note again, these are usual byproducts of greed. They are actually byproducts of greed. One may also develop greed without showing symptoms for disregard for rules of scripture and logic. So what does this mean is, one might internally have greed and he might be following Raganuga Bhakti, and externally he might be highly shastric and highly logical, and you might understand, oh, maybe he's still practicing Vaidhi Bhakti. That is why it is extremely, extremely difficult to exactly say whether this sadhaka is on the level of practicing Raganuga Bhakti. Very difficult from externally come to know whether he is actually internally practicing Raganuga Bhakti. Very, very difficult. Unless you are very close to him and he confides to you, or it is the relationship between the spiritual master and the disciple. Actually, more refined, you can say, training is required further now to cultivate this path of Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. In fact, it is more fine, you can say, tuning is required in your bhakti. So that's why it's not that one who is qualified for Raganuga Bhakti, he gives up scripture, gives up logic, gives up following Ado Guru Padasha, everything, and he's just on his own. No, it's not like that. So that is what we should understand. Okay, any questions regarding up till now what we discussed? About this greed, again, we have to at least have 1 or 2 classes of discussion to understand this. So time does not permit here in this session of Bhakti Rasamrita. But those who are interested can actually. Yes, Mataji. Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Prabhu, this definition, it says who are fixed solely in Ragatmika Bhakti. So in Vrajavasis, everyone is in Ragatmika Bhakti, right?
Yeah.
So why specifically they have mentioned who are fixed solely in Ragatmika Bhakti?
Who are fixed solely in Radha. Yeah, they are Ragatmika Ekanishtaye. Well, I also thought about it, why there was a need, because they are fixed in Ragatmika Bhakti, and their Bhakti is not like a Sadhaka Bhakti who's at Nishta. Even a person who is a Sadhaka, who is at this level of Nishta, he is very steady in his practice. I don't know why it is mentioned, but let me do some more research and find out why Rupa Goswami is saying who are fixed solely in Ragatmika Bhakti here.
So Vrindavan, all are in Ragatmika Bhakti.
Yes, in Vrindavan, everyone is in Ragatmika Bhakti, either Kama Rupa or Sambandha Rupa.
So Prabhu, this is only at the time of Krishna, or at present also in Vrindavan, whoever stays
No. Ragatmika Bhakti is only found in the Nitya Siddhas, in the eternal associates of Krishna in the spiritual world, and when even they come here in this material world.
Oh, okay, Prabhu.
Yes, it's not.
Okay.
It's in the Siddhas. That's what we have been see here. Siddha Bhakti is
Mm-hmm.
who are perfected their life and they are, in the spiritual world.
And Prabhu, here this term Kama Rupa Ragatmika. So why this Rupa is used here?
Kama Rupa.
Means Rupanuga, it has nothing to do with Rupanuga.
No. It has nothing to do with Rupanuga. It's nothing to do with Rupa Goswami. The form of it,
Mm-hmm.
the form of it is Kama Rupa, one is another Sambandha Rupa, like that. It takes a different form, that's what it was mentioned. A different type it is.
Mm.
It has nothing to do with Rupa Goswami.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions anyone has? Any other clarifications? Okay. Fine. So now let us now go to, we have understood the Adhikar. Qualification for Raganuga Bhakti. Is Vaidhi Sadhaka dependent on the Shastra till he reaches Bhava? So this is one question which is being answered by Rupa Goswami himself in one of the verses. Because it was mentioned, na Shastram, na Yuktim. So is he dependent on the Shastras till he reaches Bhava? This is the point which is being answered in this verse. Now we know in Uttama Bhakti there is Sadhana and Sadhya, there is Vaidhi, Raganuga and Bhava. So the Vaidhi Sadhaka, he comes to practice Raganuga Sadhana. Now he's impelled more by lobe, spiritual greed, and na Shastram, na Yuktim, but still we know that he uses Shastra to understand Raganuga Shastras, the Raganuga Bhakti where it is mentioned. But here we mean that his bhakti is impelled by greed and not by the injunctions of the Shastras. So like that. Now further, he still follows the rules and regulations. Now up till when he follows? Up till Bhava or before Bhava? When does he shun the rules completely, or what exactly? That is what is being discussed in this verse of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Vaidhi Bhakti Adhikari tu Bhava Virbhavanavati Atra Shastram Tata Tarkam anukulam apekshate. Those qualified for Vaidhi Bhakti adhikaritu, are dependent on the rules of scripture and favorable use of logic. Atra shastram tada tarkam anukulam apekshate. Until the appearance of Bhava Bhakti, Bhava Avir Bhavana Avadi, till the time Bhava Bhakti appears. There is, and they, until then, they are dependent on the rules of scripture and use of logic. Okay. So, let me just. Okay, Jiva Goswami. Because of following after the Ragatmikas, those practicing Raganuga Bhakti practice Bhakti with no limitations. They just go in a flow. And you can't say, sometimes they can sit and study 10th canto till hours together, days together, forget about food, forget about taking bath. And other devotee cannot come and tell, Prabhu, you have not taken your bath, you have not attended Mangal Arati. You cannot understand the inner consciousness, what is going on in this Raganuga Bhakta. It's sometimes very difficult to find. They practice Bhakti with no limitations. That means that there is no specific rule concerning the time at which they will give up dependence on the rules of scripture. So because they practice Bhakti with no limitations, there is no specific rule concerning at what time they will give dependence on the rules of scriptures. Sometimes, when they are externally out, they might follow all the rules of Vaidhi Bhakti to set an example. And when they will give up, we don't know. So, their dependence on scriptures. Is there a limit to how long these practicing Vaidhi Bhakti should depend on the rules? This is the question Jiva Goswami is raising. The answer is given in this verse. He says, this verse answers. Bhava here means Rati, or the stage of Bhava Bhakti after Sadhana Bhakti. Because we know after Sadhana Bhakti is Bhava Bhakti, and after Bhava Bhakti is Prema Bhakti. Note, at the stage of Rati, the devotee would not commit sin by his nature, and thus would not have to consider the rules of scripture. Till then, he has to follow meticulously the rules of scripture so that he doesn't commit sin. He has to use his vivek of what is anukulasi sankalpa, what is favorable for my Krishna consciousness, what is unfavorable. Now, Srila Jiva Goswami goes quite elaborate and in detail, quite philosophically. He's our Siddhanta Acharya in the Sandarbhas. And he mentions that buddhi, a sadhaka has to use his buddhi to discriminate what is right and what is wrong according to Shastra. He has to ascertain. So he says that, what is it? A very wonderful statement he makes that for a sadhaka to stay in his devotion, bhakti, he has to use his buddhi. He has to use his intelligence. But for a siddha, what sustains his devotion is not his buddhi, but priti towards the Lord. Because now in Bhava Bhakti and Prema Bhakti, he has developed relationship with the Lord because his Swarupa is revealed. He is relishing rasa with the Lord because he knows what is his rasa with the Lord and all. So his priti with the Lord is what is sustaining him. But what sustains a sadhaka is his buddhi, especially, buddhi which is derived from Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. So that's just an understanding, just to get what exactly it means. However, his Vaidhi Bhakti would influence his Bhava and Prema, coloring it with awareness of Krishna as the God. It is said, he gives a reference, Na mai ekanta bhaktanam gunadosha bhava guna sadhunam samachittanam buddhe param upeyusham. Material piety and sin which arise from good and evil of this world, rules and regulations. Guna, dosha, udbhava, guna cannot exist within my unalloyed devotees. Na mai ekanta bhaktanam. So here it is unalloyed devotees means it is bhava bhaktas who being free from material hankering maintain steady spiritual consciousness in all circumstances. Sadhunam samachittanam. Indeed, such devotees have achieved me, the Supreme Lord, who is beyond anything and can be conceived, and that can be conceived by material intelligence. Buddhe param upe yusham. So I was giving that example. I hope that was clear. No, what sustains a siddha is his preeti towards the Lord. It doesn't depend on buddhi, but what sustains a sadhaka is his buddhi, according to acting according to Guru Sadhu and Shastra. So this is the reference how the buddhi, which is purified for the ekanta bhaktas, for them piety and impiety doesn't make difference at all. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in one of his bhajans, it's a Siddha Lalsa bhajan. Dhamavasi jane korite pranati magibo kriparalesh. He says, Dhamavasi jane. I'll go to the Dhamvasis. He's wandering as a mendicant, absorbed in bhava, spiritual ecstasy, and in the Dhamvas, in Navdeep, Dhamavasi jane. I will, go to the Dhamvasis, the normal residents of Navdeep or Vrindavan, Magibo Kriparalesh. So you can imagine Bhaktivinoda Thakur is exalted Mahabhagavat, but he is considering these are Dhamvasis and I want to take them mercy. And Swapacha Grahite Magibo Pibo Saraswati Jale. I will go to a house of Swapacha, a dog eater in this Dhamvas, and I will ask Madhukari. I'll beg. So even if it is not coming from a good source, but still having this kind of a food in Madhukari, he will not be affected by sin because they are unalloyed devotees. They are samachittanam and they are transcended, in fact. So this is a very, very exalted state for us to understand. So this is some idea, hint what I'm giving you. Vishwanath Chakra Thakur. In performing sadhana bhakti, the Vaidhi bhakti practitioner will depend on scriptural injunctions and favorable use of logic until the appearance of rati. After the appearance of rati, he no longer depends on these things. That's why Vaishnavara Kriya Mudra Vigyana Bujhai, it is said. What does this mean? Anyone knows? Vaishnavara Kriya Mudra Vigyana Bujhai. What does this mean? Anyone knows? Raise your hands. Yes.
It means that what all activities Vaishnavas perform or what all acts they do, so they are beyond understanding of even the intelligent people.
Not only intelligent, even the sadhakas cannot understand. Because their consciousness is still not pure. Their intelligence is not so pure. So they will think from a sense gratificatory point of view, but they are beyond sense gratification. So their activities which are beyond sense gratification, where activities are only meant for the pleasure of Krishna, these activities, those who are into sense gratification cannot understand. So one is in the realm of sense gratification, the intelligence, the polluted intelligence. The pure intelligence is working under the direction of the soul towards the supreme soul. So it is difficult to fathom, the Vaishnava's activities. His Holiness Gaur Govind Maharaj, in one of his lectures narrating that he was narrating a true story of a sadhu Vaishnava who is to go to the fish market and buy fish and dry the fish in front of his house. And fish when it is drying, especially dry fish, especially those who are from South India on the coastal side, know how badly it smells. And you know what the other Vaishnavas think? Oh, see this Vaishnava, he doesn't even follow the regulative principles. He eats fish. That's what they were thinking. But you know why this Vaishnava was doing this? He was doing this so that nobody will come to his house and disturb in his bhajan. Inside he is to sit and chant. So Vaishnava Kriya Mudra Vigya na bujai. So the activities of a exalted personality, we cannot understand. We know that famous pastime of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. So where is to go and sit? The toilet, so that nobody will come and disturb him. So like that, the buddhi is transcended there. So that's why it no longer depends. However, as soon as greed, one minute, let me mute you all, otherwise. However, as soon as the greed manifests in him for attaining a bhav similar to that of the Vrajvasis, and he develops an inclination for Raga Bhakti, the practitioner of Raganuga Bhakti does not depend any longer on scriptural rules and logic. Thus, it is greatly wherever it is also necessary to study the scriptures in order to understand the proper sadhana for Raganuga Bhakti. Yes? Okay. So I hope these points are clear what qualification of Raganuga Bhakti is being discussed. Any questions you have? Now we go to the next topics of practice of Raganuga Bhakti. What are the practice or elements of Raganuga Bhakti? Yes, Prabhuji.
Prabhu, one question. Can you please open the slide of Jiva Goswami's commentary?
Okay.
Okay, I think there was one more where it was mentioned that the practice of sadhana bhakti influences the bhava and prema, and it colors Krishna as the Lord. So that
Yes,
one
yes,
line.
yes.
Yes,
Yes.
this one.
So
Is this
here,
line- yeah.
However, his Vaidhi Bhakti would influence his bhava and prema, coloring it with awareness of Krishna as the Lord. Now, yes, good, you pointed out this. Now, what I would like to say here is that there can be very exalted sannyasis who are on the very high level of bhava and prema. We don't know, but at least bhava and prema, they are uttamadhikaris. It doesn't mean that when they are giving a Bhagavatam class that they are not, aware that Krishna is the supreme. In their classes, they are, from the Shastras they are quoting. They have awareness of Krishna as the Lord. Yes, they have that awareness. Although they might be in bhava stage or prema stage, there is the color of the awareness of Krishna as a Lord. This is in the sadhaka stage where the sadhaka attains siddhi also in the sadhana body. But when this siddha leaves this body and goes back to the place where Krishna is performing his pastimes, he takes birth there. That time that awareness is not there. That time the awareness is only that Krishna is my Lord, Krishna is my lover, Krishna is my friend, Krishna is my son, or I'm Krishna's servant, like that. But even at bhava and prema stage, there is that awareness of Krishna. We know sannyasis, when they're giving classes, they are explaining the Krishna tattva. So they are aware that Krishna is supreme. Yes, so like that it is. I hope you understood the meaning.
Yes, Prabhu. Just one additional question to that. So there are two types of Nitya Siddhas. For example, now we have Prabhupada or Bhakti Saraswati Thakur. So these Nitya Siddhas, they preach preach the awareness of Krishna as a Lord. But there are other Nitya Siddhas who are like directly, they don't preach. For example, Vamshadas Babaji Maharaj and all. So they are also Nitya Siddhas, but they will not preach. I mean, they are completely as if they don't have awareness of Krishna as a God. I mean, they are as if in
No,
the
no, no, no,
spiritual.
nothing like that. Even they have awareness.
Okay.
You are confusing two things, Goshtanandis and Bhajananandis.
Okay.
Goshtanandis and Bhajananandis are the two categories of those who do their bhajan. The Goshtanandis preach also and practice,
Okay.
and the Bhajanandis are only engaged in bhajan. But we have to have a deeper understanding. Many think that Gaur Krishnadas Babaji was a Bhajananandi, and Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is a Goshtanandi. He used to preach. But Gaur Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj, just by sitting in one place and chanting, he was purifying the atmosphere. In fact, he was purifying the ether in the sky, and that was spreading all around the universe. And he was attracting, making the souls favorable to take up Krishna consciousness. And Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur connected them. And that's why Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur never said that those who are my disciples are not, those who am I accepting as just, they are not my disciples. They are, sent by my Guru Maharaj. I'm their servant. I'm just serving my spiritual master. That was his mood. So once Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur and I think someone was going in a boat, and then the same question came of Goshtanandi and Bhajananandi. So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur pointed out, so there is the motor and there is a battery. So the motor is making a lot of noise and you cannot see the battery. The battery is not doing anything. But where is the power for the battery coming from? Power for the motor coming from the battery. So he explained the battery is like the Bhajananandi and the motor is like the Goshtanandi. Okay.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, there was one more hand raised. Any other question? Yes. Yes, Mataji.
Prabhu, can you just explain this until the appearance of Rati? Rati, what does it means here?
Rati is also another synonym for bhava. Bhava. Rati is attraction, general sense. But Rati refers to bhava bhakti. Until the appearance of bhava bhakti. Until the appearance of bhava bhakti. The subtle body gets purified. That's why we have to do vivek, buddhi we have to use. But when the subtle body gets completely purified, then the soul's attraction towards Krishna fully manifest. That time the material buddhi, is not of much use for us. Because, I mentioned what sustains a siddha is priti towards the Lord. And what sustains a sadhaka is buddhi. So like that. Rati is bhava.
Prabhu, any example of Raganuga Bhakta?
Any example of Raganuga Bhakta?
Means how we can...
in today's context, today's world, who is practicing Raganuga Bhakta, you want to know, or from the previous example?
Pastimes of Krishna?
Pastimes of Krishna, no, none are Raganuga Bhaktas, for your kind information. All are Ragatmika Bhaktas. All are Siddhas, eternal associates.
No, means from Mathura or Dwarka, like they
you're still getting confused. That means you're not understanding that the Mathura Vasis and the Dwarka Vasis are not Ragatmika Bhaktas and they don't practice Raganuga Bhakti also. They don't practice Raganuga Bhakti. Are you getting this point?
Why not? Means they were also very much they understood that like Gopi are the topmost devotees, right? Means why that they will not follow Ragatmika. They were also very much, they have understood the supremacy of the Vrindavan Vasi, na?
But they have awareness of the Aishwarya of the Lord. They have Aishwarya Gyan, that this is the Lord. To give an example, just to drive the point home, when Krishna showed the Vishwarup in the mouth, Arjuna he physically showed, but in the mouth, he showed all the universes, and he showed the one universe in which, Krishna was performing his pastime, and in that universe, he showed Gokul, and in that Gokul, Krishna showed that Mother Yashoda is saying in Krishna's mouth. And then Mother Yashoda, what is this I'm seeing? Maybe my son is God. Something like this came in her mind, and suddenly, Krishna did not want that, to happen. So suddenly Krishna took it away. So what happened? Mother Yashoda forgot everything. Oh, he's my son. Let me feed him milk. And he took him and went. She forgot the whole thing. Now, Arjuna also saw the Vishwarupa. Arjuna saw the Vishwarupa, and later on, the Vishwarupa was taken away. Then, he was back in Prema as Krishna is my friend, but he had that awareness always that Krishna is the Lord. Another example is of Mother Devaki and Vasudeva. Although they are the parents in Vatsalya Ras, but still when both Krishna and Balram first entered Mathura and killed Kamsa, who are these two personalities who could kill Kamsa? They could understand from the Shastras that they are incarnations. Although they are our children, they are incarnations. So Krishna and Balram wanted affection from their parents, because after 11 years they are meeting. They wanted that the parents hug them, kiss them, but they were not ready. They were, stay a little far away. Stay far away. Your God, let me worship you with awe and reverence. So Krishna did not like this. Krishna did not like it. And suddenly he took it away. And then Mother Devaki, embraced Krishna and fed him breast milk. So the analogy is given of what, the analogy is given is that, especially in Mayapur, many have visited Mayapur, the milk is carried in cans and they put grass so that, the milk doesn't spoil. So sometimes the milk, when it is boiling with the grass, sometimes the grass comes up. The grass comes up and it stays there. So the point is, in Krishna Leela in Vrindavan, Krishna exhibits his Aishwarya. He exhibits his Aishwarya. It's not that he doesn't exhibit his Aishwarya. He exhibits his Aishwarya. Lifting Govardhan is not a Aishwarya, showing the power of the Lord. It's showing the power of the Lord. But the prema, the madhurya, or the vatsalya, or the sakya and dasya is so deep that although Krishna exhibits his Aishwarya, still the prema is so deep that it, the Aishwarya is completely, neglected, or it is suppressed fully. Just like that grass, it goes down sometimes when boiling, but it never comes up, the grass. But in Dwarka or in Mathura, Krishna also exhibits his Aishwarya, but they accept that Aishwarya Gyan stays. Somewhere in their consciousness it stays that he's God. That is the difference in Vraj Bhakti and, the Aishwarya Bhakti which is practiced in Mathura and Dwarka, where there is Aishwarya Gyan of the Lord. That is why there is awe and reverence. Oh, he is the Lord. There is intimacy, but still there is awe and reverence that he is the Lord. But in Vrindavan, there is no awe and reverence. Aishwarya Jnana Hoy Shitil nahi mora preet. This are all the beginning verses of Chaitanya Charitamrit. Nahi mora preet. Chaitanya Charitamrit, we discussed, I think, 1 second. Yes. Yes. Okay. I'll just show you these verses. Maybe you can get some more hint about, this is very important. Yes, devotees for many years cannot understand this. Now, after mentioning, Premaras, Niryas, we discussed these verses in the beginning of Raganuga discussion. Aishwarya Jnanite Saba Jagata Mishrita Aishwarya Shitila Prema Nahi Mora Prita. This is Mahaprabhu speaking. Aishwarya Jnanite, knowledge of the majesty. That was Aishwarya. Saba Jagata Mishrita, all practice mixed devotion. Aishwarya Shitil, weakened by this majesty, Prema, there is Prema in the Mathuravasis and even in the Dwarkavasis. Nahi Mora Preet, it doesn't give me pleasure. Amare Ishwaramane, Apana Kehin, Tara Prema Vasha, Ami, Nayah Adhin. If one regards me as a supreme lord and himself as subordinate, I do not become subservient to his love, nor can it control me. So he's Prabhu and Das, So Krishna doesn't come under the control of that kind of a devotee. Ama ke te ye bhakta bhaje, e bhave, tara se bhave bhaje, e mora sabhave. So whatever mood one worships, then that mood Krishna will reciprocate. Which is the verse we can quote for this from the Gita? Anyone knows? Which is the verse you can quote for this in the Gita? There is one hand, and I knew it will be that our devotee Naivav, but okay, Sunita Mataji has raised her hand. Yes?
ये यथा माम प्रपद्यन्ते ताम तथैव भजाम्यहम्.
Yes, correct. This is the verse which is being quoted. Now, here comes pure sweetness. Mora putra mora saka mora pranapati ei bhave ei mora kare shuddha bhakti apana ke bada mane amar samahin sei bhave hoy ami tahara din. If one cherishes pure loving devotion to me, thinking me as his son, Mora Putra, his friend, Mora Saka, Mora Pranapati, his beloved, regarding himself as great and considering me his equal or inferior, apana ke bada mane. That's why Madhumangal, Krishna is holding the Giridhari mountain, and Madhumangal is saying, don't think that Krishna is holding, I'm a Brahmana, and by my mantras, I'm holding this Govardhan. What, this Krishna? I have more powers than him. What? He is my friend. I have given him that Shakti. So this is the pure, Braj, Bhakti. This is which is Shuddha Bhakti. Apanaka bada mane, amara samahin. Oh, we both are equal. That's why Arjuna of Kurukshetra cannot climb on Krishna. It's only Sridhama or Subal who can climb on Krishna and play with Krishna. Apana ke bada mani amara samahin. Sei bhave hoy amara adhin. I become subordinate to him. That kind of love, I become controlled. By him. So even in this worldly life, we can see that if the father is like a judge, very strict, having a lot of powers, everyone salutes when he gets down from the car. There are security bodyguards for him. Everyone stands up when he comes in the court, and everyone says, "My Lord," when they address there. But the same father, he's getting that kind of respect because of his position and power. But the same father, when he comes to his home, his son, he'll tell, "Oh, you become a horse. I would like to sit on you and, take a ride." So the father becomes completely controlled by the son's love, and he, such a big, powerful Supreme Court or a High Court judge, he becomes a horse, or a camel, and then the son sits and takes pleasure, and the father takes more pleasure in it. So sei bhave Ami tahar adin. So, Mata Mora Putra Bhave Kare Bandhan. Mother Yashoda ties Krishna, Damodar Leela. Atihi na gyane kare lalana palan. And she nourishes me, thinking I'm utterly helpless. Krishna, who maintains all the three universes and feeds everyone. Shuddha Saka, Sakya Kare, Skanda Ahrohan. Now, what is this Shuddha Saka? We have heard about Sakas. Sakas are friends. But there is Shuddha Saka, where there is pure friendship. So Arjuna's, as we were discussing, it is Gaurav Sakya. There is awe in his friendship. But there is what? Vishrambe. Vishram means intimacy. Shuddha Saka. Shuddha Saka Saka. Saka Shuddha Sake Kare Skandaharon. They climb on Krishna. Tumi kon bada loka. Tumi amya sama. You are what big you are. And you are equal. प्रिया यदि मान करे करे भर्सन वेद सुति होते हरे से ही मोरावन. If my beloved consort reproaches me in a sulky mood, that steals my mind from the reverent hymns of the Vedas. In the Vedas, the Purusha Sukta Vedas are glorifying the absolute truth. That is not so pleasing to Krishna. But the Priya, she gives some bad words to Krishna. In fact, that is rebuking Krishna. That is very pleasing to Krishna, because that is the intimacy in Vraj Bhakti, where they don't consider the Lord as the Lord, but they are lover, they are friend, and they are son. So this is the mood of Vraj Bhakti. Ei Shuddha Bhakta line Karime Avatar, Karive Vivida Vidat Adbhuta Vihar, Vaikuntadi Nahi, Yei Leela Prachar, Sei Leela Karibe, Yatamora Chamatkar. So I hope now a little bit idea of getting of what is real Vraj Bhakti.
Yeah, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Prabhu, then another question, what I was asking yesterday, when someone practice Vaidehi, so he will start from the Vaidehi sadhana bhakti only, right? So
He will start from Shraddha Sadhu Sang, start doing his bhajan kriya, starts following Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti and follows the 64 angas of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. And then slowly with the advancement, he should come to the level of Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. That is actually then his real fortune begins.
So in that, he will not have the understanding of supremacy of Lord?
He will have, that's what I was explaining, that even if a very advanced sannyasi who is in Bhava and Prema, internally he has this mood of specific rasa, which he's, but in his lectures, he has that Aishwarya Gyan is there, it is colored, but only when he goes back to the spiritual world, then he's a Ragatmika Bhakta there. Till then he's, in his Siddha, he has attained perfection, but still he's in a sadhaka body. The body is fully purified in one sense. But later on he takes another birth in Vraj, and there, based on the mood he has practiced, Raganuga Bhakti mood he has practiced, that mood he will attain. If he has practiced in the Madhuri Ras, then he'll attain a Gopi body. If he has practiced in Vatsalya, then he'll attain a Gopa, elderly Gopa or elderly Gopi. If he has practiced in Sakya, that was a mood, then he'll attain a Gopa body. So then in that body, he'll perfect and go back to the spiritual world. And then, then there is no awareness completely. Is it clear?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Okay, where were we now? Practice of Raganuga Bhakti. Yes, we will take up this now. Interesting practice. How do we practice now Raganuga Bhakti? Now, just three verses in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu mention the practice of a Raganuga sadhaka. He's a sadhaka, please remember. He's not a siddha. He's a sadhaka. He's practicing sadhana bhakti. But not Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, but Raganuga sadhana bhakti. And these two verses are quoted by Srila Prabhupada in his even Updesh Amrit. In his purport, he has quoted. Krishnam smaram janam jasya preshtam nija samihitam tat kata rataschasho kuryad vasam vraje sada. Remembering the Vrindavan form of Krishna, Krishnam smaram, remembrance. So one thing which we are clear now that to practice Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti, one has to be constantly able to think of Krishna, Smaranam. And that will come when many years we have done Shravan and Kirtan, hearing and vibrating. We hear Krishna Katha and we speak Krishna Katha, Shravan and Kirtan. Many years we do, then slowly the remembrance will come. So when at a very somewhere in the Madhyam Adhikari stage, at the stage of Nishtha, we are self-realized and the remembrance of Krishna is natural and spontaneous because of years of practice. So always remembering Krishna, Vraja Krishna, and not Dwarka Krishna or Mathura Krishna, and his dear associates. Cha yasya preshtam janam. Janam means preshtam, his dear. Preshtam is dear. Who have inclinations for service similar to his own. Nija samihitam. So if he has an inclination for Madhurya, then he will remember the Vrajadevis, the Gopis. If he has an inclination of Vatsalya, then he'll remember the elderly Gopas and elderly Gopis. Those pastimes of Krishna stealing the Makhan and the elderly Gopis going and complaining to Mother Yashoda. So these moods, similar service he will think about. Who has inclinations for service similar to his own, absorbing oneself in hearing topics related to them. Tat katarata. So if his inclination is more for the Vatsalya Ras, then he will hear the childhood pastimes of Krishna in the 10th canto, especially the first 10 chapters. I don't recollect exactly. I'm just roughly saying. If he has Sakiras, then the 10th to the 11th, 12th chapters or 15th chapter where Krishna's pastimes with the cowherd boys in the forest of Vrindavan, killing of the demons is there. Then if it is in Madhurya, then he's more interested in the pastimes in his Kaishore age, that is with the gopis. And one should always live in Vraj. Kuryad Vasam Vraje Sada. So now we can see, are we qualified to practice Raganuga Bhakti? So are these four essential elements of Ragana practice there in us? What is that? Constant remembrance of Krishna and his dear associates. And you also emulate that same mood of these associates. And you hear those kathas and you always reside in Vraj. So we can see if we have these four elements, then we can say that we are qualified to practice Ragana Bhakti. So from this verse, it is more clear. Now starts the description of the method of Raganuga sadhana. What is the method? One should remember the most dear form of Krishna, Preshtam Krishna, the son of Nanda of Kaishorage. So here Jiva Goswami is specifically emphasizing on which type of bhakti in the eternal associates and what is that Raganuga sadhaka called. I'm asking two questions. Which type of bhakti found in the eternal associates for Kaishora age and what type of Raganuga bhakti is that bhakti called? Anyone? Anyone would like to answer? There are two hands raised. Yes, Pavan Balagovind Prabhuji. Please don't type because when you answer, yes.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam Prabhu.
Yes.
That is Kamarupa Ragatmika Bhakti and Madhurya.
No, again, see, Madhurya is conjugal. That is Madhurya Ras.
Yeah.
But the bhakti is called as what? In the eternal associates? You gave the answer. You gave the answer.
Kamarupa Ragatmika.
Kamarupa Ragatmika Bhakti. Correct. And the Raganuga sadhakas who follow the Kamarupa Ragatmika Bhaktas are called as what? What type of Raganuga Bhakti that is called?
Suddenly, I slipped suddenly.
Yes, it is Kamanuga Raganuga.
Kamanuga, yes, correct.
Not
Yeah.
Sa Kamanuga. It is Kamanuga Raganuga Sadhana.
Kamanuga
Sadhana
Raganuga Sadhana.
it is sadhana. You have to understand that.
Yeah.
So he's specifically referring to Nandan Keshwar Rage and the devotees of that particular form of Krishna, Asya Janam, who have the same type of desires for serving Krishna as oneself. Nija Sami Hitam. Remembering such devotees, one should live in Braj. If possible, one should physically live in Vrindavan, the place where Krishna resided as Nanda's son. If possible, it is said. If one cannot do that, one should live there mentally. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. How many of us, wherever we are situated, we can sit and in our chanting mentally go in one of the most, favorite places of ours in Braj, wherever we have visited, and just sit there and chant for 2 hours? Can we do that mentally? How many cannot do that? Raise your hands. How many can do? Let us see. How many cannot do that? Okay, there are 17 participants today, and okay. So those who have not raised their hands means they can all do that. 10. There's 7 more left. Okay, either they are not present in the discussion here, or okay, one more is raised. Okay, let us ask Anand. Anand Prabhuji? No, he's not there. That's what. Kalyani Mataji? Okay, they are also not there. Yes. So we know how difficult it is. We are battling with our mind and senses to concentrate on the holy name. So mentally, just to be, in Vraj and just sit and do our bhajan is a very, very exalted stage. That's what Raganuga Bhakti is all about. Now, after mentioning now in the next verse, he is giving the practice of Raganuga Bhakti. This is a very interesting verse, and we can have 1 or 2 classes on this, but again, we will just stick to Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakra Thakur commentary. And one example I'll give just to have an idea and understanding of what actually is Raganuga Bhakti. So kindly hear this attentively, and then if you have questions, we'll take up at the end. Okay. This also Prabhupada quotes in his Nectar of Instruction, 7th, 8th verse. There is only one verse which deals with Raganuga Bhakti in Nectar of Instruction, that is text 8. Tannamarupa charitadi sukirtanado smartyo kramena rasanasya manasi niyojya tishtan vrajetad anuraga jananugami kalam naye tatra. I don't recollect. Iti Upadesha Saram, something like that. Yeah. So there Prabhupada again in this purport he quotes this. So this is also very famous verse. This is the second verse which is describing the practice of a Raganuga Sadhaka. Seva Sadhaka Rupena Siddha Rupena Chatrahi Tad Bhava Lipsuna Karya Vraja Lokanu Sarata. Following after the inhabitants of Raj. Vraja Lok Anusarata. Anusar means to follow in the footsteps. Rata means engaged. One should perform service. Seva hi karya in one's physical body. Sadhaka rupena and in one's siddha body. Siddha rupena cha. With the desire for a particular bhav. Tad bhava lipsuna. Lipsuna means desire. So in order to attain that particular bhav, in a sadhaka, with one's physical body, he has to follow the inhabitants of Raj in one's physical body, Sadhaka Rupena, and in his Siddha Rupa also, both Sadhaka Rupena and Siddha Rupena. Now, what this means is a very elaborate discussion, and we will see what Jiva Goswami has to say. Sadhaka Rupa refers to the physical body of the practitioner. Siddha Rupa refers to the body which is suitable for one's desired service and which has been developed by internal meditation. So just to give you some idea now, Swarup Siddha, you have heard this term, Swarup Siddha. Everyone has heard this term, Swarup Siddha. He's a self-realized soul, we say. Means here he realized that he's a soul, he's not the body. This is Sthita Pragya stage, 2.55 to 2.72. So when one is at the platform of Nishtha, one has realized the self. Now, I'm not the body, I'm the spirit soul. Now, the soul's spiritual development, that is the development of the spiritual body, begins from that stage. The development of the spiritual body. Now, based on the mood, you will start developing that spiritual body in Raganuga sadhana. Are you getting this point? Based on the mood, you develop the spiritual body. And this happens through internal meditation. That's why Raganuga sadhaka can just sit and chant 16 rounds, 32 rounds in one place, just closing his eyes and not at all having any sleep or any distractions. He can just sit in one place and absorb himself in chanting because he has got taste. He's got a taste for chanting. He's no distractions trouble him much. And internally, he goes through these stages. If you remember, Shravana Dasha, Varana Dasha, Smarana Dasha, Apana Dasha, and Sampati Dasha, and there are in Smarana Dasha the sub 5 stages. There is Dharana, Dhyana, Smarana, Anusmriti, and Samadhi. So all these internal meditation, through the internal meditation, he is going through and developing the spiritual body. Now, I give a simple example to comprehend this. I give a very simple example. Now, Brahmande Brahmite Kono Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Beach. The seed of bhakti is sown in the heart. Shraddha is sown in the heart. And then by Shravanadi Jal, we cultivate. So the seed grows. So when you become self-realized, then the real development of the spiritual body development begins because you have now particular mood. You want to attain a particular mood of the Vrajvasis. So the spiritual development of the body begins from there. Raganuga Bhakti Sadhana begins from there. So I give an example of just like a husband impregnates a wife. So the seed is sown in the womb. The seed is sown. Now this seed will develop. And you can see that the body develops within 9 months. We know that. Now, I'm just giving an analogy to compare that this development of the body is depending on especially, what was the mood of the parents, right? What kind of consciousness, they have cultivated throughout their lives. And what body it is, whether male or female, it also again depends, on their consciousness, right? So like that, how the child develops in the womb. So similarly, a self-realized soul starts developing his spiritual body by internal meditation. Now, here I would like to mention, now there are two things which can happen where the mother doesn't deliver the child. In two cases are there where the mother will not deliver after 9 months she should deliver the child. So what are the two cases in which, two incidents which you can say in which the mother doesn't deliver the child? What is it? Anyone knows? Anyone knows? Where, the child in the womb, dies. I mean, that's sense I'm saying. Two cases can happen. Yes, somebody has typed it because I had discussed with him and he knows about it. So he has typed it. Yes, but I would like to hear from others. Okay, yes, one is miscarriage, correct. Other is what? What is the other case? What is the other case? The other is abortion. When the mother herself decides to, abort the child. Now, in terms of our practice of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, what does miscarriage and abortion, how can you relate it? What can abortion mean and what can miscarriage mean in our practice of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti? Mohan Ruksham Prabhuji.
Like miscarriage, okay, abortion. I first talk about abortion. Like he himself not following the rules and regulation, Guru and Sastra and everything. So he kills his own, what do you say, the spiritual awakening or what,
Yes,
the spiritual which has been created.
Then what is miscarriage?
Miscarriage acts by externally.
Okay, Sunita Mataji wants to raise her hand. Yes, Mataji?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Miscarriage means Vaishnava Aparadha?
Okay, both have interchanged the answers. I don't know. Okay. See, when the mother is having the child in the womb, she should follow all the rules and regulations what are given by the doctor. And if she's neglectful, then that can cause miscarriage. Eating wrong foods or grinding the mortar, that's not at all recommended. Yes. So if you don't practice the Vaidhi Bhakti rules and regulations, it will not lead to Raganuga Bhakti. Yes, you'll be stuck up there. You will not make advancement. Then aparad. If you commit aparad, the seed of bhakti is completely uprooted from the root only. So I term that abortion is like what? Aparad. So this is just an understanding for us to just get an idea. So Siddharupa is developed by internal meditation, and I just gave an idea what is it. The Siddharupa is given by the Guru on the path of Raga Bhakti when he sees the qualification for Raganuga Bhakti and a particular inclination in a particular disciple. It's not something which, I'm at the stage of Nishtha, I have this inclination. It can be imagination of the mind, and you can just get deviated. You can have a mental deviation. So a lot of, fine-tuning guidance is required on the path of Raganuga Bhakti. And this is done by the Guru because the Guru understands, Guru is like an X-ray. He can see through the disciple. Theoretically, this would be a form of an associate of one of the prominent devotees in Vraj with a specific rasa, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsulya or Madhurya. Along with the specific form, specific dress and service for Krishna throughout the day would be given. There is a form, dress and service. There are many other things, but just Jiva Goswami is mentioning. Now, however, forms of manjaris, assistants to the Sakis of Radha, seem to be with the most prominent forms given. So in this line, we are coming in the line of Rupa Goswami, and this is what Mahaprabhu has come to give us. So this, Rup Manjari is the assistant of the Saki, Lalita or Vishaka, I don't remember, who is also serving Srimati Radharani. So we are the servants of Rupa Goswami. So the Manjari forms are prominent. That's what Jiva Goswami says. Now, the details are given in the works by Gopal Guru Goswami, Dhyana Chandra Goswami and Vishwanath Chakra Thakur. So now I will not go into these details. It's again a vast elaborate topic about Gopal Guru Goswami, Dhyana Chandra Goswami and Vishwanath Chakra. Vishwanath Chakra Thakur speaks in his Bhagavatam commentaries He speaks in his books like the Raga Vartma Chandrika and all. And especially Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks in his works, especially in Harinam Chintamani, he speaks about it. He speaks about it in Jaiva Dharma quite in detail. But before that, all the philosophy, rock solid philosophy, tattva he gives, first 15, 20 chapters. That we need to understand first. One serves with the desire for a particular bhava or rati of an associate of Krishna situated in Braj. Tad bhava lipsana. One should follow in the footsteps of the dear associates of Krishna in Braj Lok, and other loyals to him. So, Raganuga means to follow the Ragatmikas. Okay. Vishwanath Chakravarti. One performs service with Sadhaka Rupa, the present body, and with the Siddha Rupa, the body which is suitable for serving Vraja Krishna in a particular type of rati or bhava one desires, and which appears through inner contemplation with the desire for a particular rati directed towards one beloved Krishna situated in Vrindavan. Tad bhava lipsuna. Note, the idea here is it is simultaneous in Raganuga Bhakti, not at the same instant, but during the same period. For instance, for some hours he will meditate. That is, he is developing this is practice of Sadhaka Rupa or Siddha Rupa. For some hours when he is meditating. For some hours when he is meditating, is Sadhaka Rupa practice or Siddha Rupa practice? Yes, one hand has been raised. Yes, Mataji?
Sadhaka Rupa.
No, Siddha Rupa. Because he is internally meditating on, to follow in the footsteps of the Ragatmikas and develop that mood and that body. So it is, and the rest of the day he will chant, read, and do deity verses. So this is Sadhaka. So externally, that's why we cannot understand who is practicing Raganuga Bhakti. One should follow after the dear devotees of Krishna such as Radha, Lalita, Vishaka, Sri Rupa Manjari, and those following after them, persons such as Rupa and Sanatan Goswamis. Braja, Loka, Anu, Sa, Rata. Accordingly, one should perform mental service in one's Siddha Rupa. So Manasiya Seva it is called, Siddha Rupa, following after the examples of Sri Radha, Lalita, Vishaka, Sri Rupa Manjari, and others. In one's physical body, one should perform sevasas using one's body, following after persons such as Rupa and Sanatan Goswami situated in Braj. By the word Vrajalok, one should understand persons situated in Vraj, Radha, Chandravali, and others. Following after them, one should perform service using one's physical body also, Sadhakaru. Some modern persons following the Sauramya Sampradaya think that since persons such as Radha did not perform services such as surrendering to Guru, following Ekadasi vows, and serving Shaligram and Tulsi, we also need not do these activities. So this Sauramya Sampradaya is actually an Apasampradaya. I don't recollect the name. Rup Kaviraj. Hemlata Thakurani was the daughter of Srinivas Acharya, very exalted Mahabhagavatini she was, and she was a spiritual master, and her disciple was Rupa Kaviraj, and he had committed an offense. Because of that offense, he started debating, and he came up with this concocted philosophy that we follow the Ragatmikas, the eternal associates, like the gopis. The gopis did not, surrender to, they did not accept any guru. So we also will not accept guru. So he rejected the guru. And then he came up with a concocted philosophy that only sannyasis can become guru. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Yehi Krishna Vetya, say guru hoy, kiba vipra kiba nasi. That verse is there, na? And then, the eternal associates did not, like Srimati Radharani and the gopis did not do Ekadasi. So we'll also not follow Ekadasi. No. So this is all concoction. So this is the Sauramya Sampradaya. That's what I'm explaining. That idea is defeated here. Jiva Goswami in his commentary has explained this. with the word Vrajalokas tu atra Krishna Preshta Janas tad anugatas cha tad anusrata. Vrajalok means those dear to Krishna like Sri Radha and persons following after them like Sri Rupa. One should follow their footsteps. Rupa Goswami was following all the regulated principles. He accepted a guru. He was following Ekadasi vows. He was serving the deity. So we should follow the eternal associates as well as the associates like in the Sadhaka Sharir, like Rupa Goswami. Now, Sadhaka Rupena and Siddha Rupena. With the physical body, the material body, we follow the conduct given by Rupa Goswami, 64 Angas. Sorry, that is what I was wondering, what happened here. Why it is like this. So this should go this side. So this is Sadhaka Deha, physical body, material body, we follow Rupa Goswami. And in our internal contemplation, we identify as a gopi or a cowherd. We follow the conduct out of the Vraja residents and slowly develop the spiritual body. So that is Sadhaka Rupa and Siddha Rupa. So there is one more practice of Raganuga Bhakti. Now I know this subject is difficult to understand, but I'll give you one example. I'll just take 5 more minutes and give you one example of what really is Raganuga sadhana practice, how exalted it is. So I'm going to give you one example here carefully. This is about Narottam Das Thakur. By divine intervention of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and after much personal anxiety, endeavor and hardship, Narottam was initiated by Sri Loknath Goswami. As the days passed into weeks and then months, Narottam grew in spiritual accomplishment, as did his reputation throughout Vrindavan. One night, a divine Vaishnavi appeared to him in a dream and said, "Dedicate yourself to the feet of your Guru and do whatever he asks. Your sincerity and austerity have pleased me, and I will see that you are engaged in a very confidential service. When I meet Krishna every afternoon in the Kunj, I see that the Sakis are serving him with the utmost care. They make a special milk-based preparation for him, and Champakalata is the most efficient gopi in this service. Boiling the milk, you shall work under her direction. Please remember that I become happy if Krishna is happy." Now, when Narottam awoke, he quickly ran to Loknath Goswami's Bhajan Kutir and conveyed the entire dream. Loknath embraced Narottam, confirming that the Vaishnavi was indeed Sri Radhika, Krishna's beloved consort. Loknath was pleased to hear that Narottam was given a special service, boiling milk, by Srimati Radharani herself. Loknath understood that this was his disciple's eternal service to Krishna and that Radhika was merely reinstating him in that service. Because Narottam Das Thakur is from the spiritual world. He's a Nitya Siddha. But it is just reaffirming, Radhika is reaffirming. After being given this unique core by Srimati Radharani, having confirmed it with his Guru, Narottam would sometimes go into very deep trances, internal meditation. Now, when he is going into deep trances, which Rupena he is practicing his bhakti? Raise your hands. Only one devotee. I would like to hear others. Okay, Pawan Bal Govind Prabhuji.
Siddharup.
Siddharup, yes. Okay. So he would go into deep trance, seeing himself boiling milk for Radhika and the gopis while in his Manjari form. So he's contemplating on his spiritual body there. Often in his Siddha Deha, perfected form, he found it useful to use dry wood for fire, which kept the milk boiling. On some occasions, however, the milk would overflow. When this happened, Narottam would try to stop the overflowing milk with his bare hands. During his intense absorption he would often neglect the fact that his hands were scorched. But when his reverie subsided, he saw that the scorched hands in his internal service had accompanied him back into the world of three dimensions. So in his spiritual body, he was doing that service of boiling the milk and is to lift the hot iron pot from the firewood. And because it was hot in his Siddha Deha, and now when he comes back into meditation in his Sadhaka Deha now, he sees that his hands are burnt. Sometimes he tried to cover his marked hands with a piece of cloth. But all of Vrindavan knew the transcendent way in which he had received the burns. He was then asked by his Guru Maharaj to take shelter of Srila Jiva Goswami for further instruction and education. And this he happily did. Complying with the order of Loknath Goswami, Narottam submitted himself to the feet of Jiva Goswami and asked him to accept him as a student. In response, Srila Jiva Goswami took hold of his hands and immediately requested him to tell the story of how they became so badly burnt. Narottam then told his new master the recurring events of his internal service. As Srila Jiva listened, he felt great satisfaction and spiritual ecstasy. He confirmed that Narottam was indeed Champaka Manjiri, and Narottam said, yes, Radhika herself had addressed me in this way. Hearing this with great happiness, Srila Jiva Goswami embraced Narottam, saying, you are the manifestation of Mahaprabhu's love, and with this love, you will flood the entire universe. So this is one example of how Sadhaka Rupena and Siddha Rupena of Narottam Das Thakur. It is said that Narottam Das Thakur is for 1 year, when his spiritual master was examining him, he used to sit and chant 2 lakh names. And then in his internal meditation, he used to be meditating on the service, what he is doing in his Siddha Deha. Sadhaka Rupena, Siddha Rupena. So you can understand how exalted is the practice of Raganuga Sadhana. There are some more examples, but we will not take them. But anyone knows there are 2 famous pastimes among the Goswamis, means later on after Mahaprabhu, all the acharyas who have come, there are 2 famous pastimes of these pastimes examples of Sadhaka Rupena, Siddha Rupena. Anyone knows these examples? Yes, Pavan Bal Govind Prabhuji. Yes.
The incident of Shyamananda Pandita.
Yes, exactly. The incident of Shaman Pandita. I'll not go into the details because
He has been given the tilaka by.
Yes, sorry. Just please speak. Please.
Where he participates in the that Leela of Radhika losing her anklet.
Yes, Nupur, yeah.
Nupur, no.
Yeah.
And he was given the tilaka by that.
Yes. Okay. Any other example anyone knows? Any other example anyone knows? The one had raised hand. I think Vaishali Mataji. Any other example?
Prabhu, this about Raghunath Das Goswami, he had eaten the
Sweet
bowl
rice.
of sweet rice, yeah.
Yes.
And even Rupa Goswami doing the sweet kheer for, is that?
No. That is not. So in his spiritual body, he was eating sweet rice, but there the details are not there. But there is one more famous pastime, well documented and well narrated in the Gaudiya history. I'll just take that 2 minutes and explain. I'll not go into detail. It is about Gopal Bhatta Goswami. Gopal Bhatta Goswami is Mani Manjari in his spiritual body. He's a perfected, it's not that they are sadhakas. Please remember, these Goswamis, they have perfected, even in their, these bodies which they come, they are perfected and they know their spiritual bodies. So, in one particular pastime where, Krishna and the gopis were nicely enjoying the water sports, one of the nose rings of Srimati Radharani fell, and Gopal Bhatt Goswami was in his meditation. He saw this as Guna Manjari, and he indicated to Srinivasa Acharya to do this service, to find out, to find out where it has fallen in the lake. And Srinivasa Acharya, he was there somewhere in Bengal. He was in Bengal, and in his internal meditation, he went into the pastime, and 3 days he was cut off. No food, nothing. He was like dead. Everyone started crying. What happened? His wife, his children thought, what has happened to him? Then the Kaviraj came. He saw that, there is breathing. Maybe he has gone into his meditation. How to resolve this? His wife was very, concerned. And Srinivasa Acharya was trying to locate the Nupur, the nose ring. And he was not able to locate. So here Srinivasa Acharya is in Bengal, and 3 days he is gone into meditation. His body is stunned, there's no movement at all. So his wife is concerned, and at last she calls Ramchandra Kaviraj, who is a close friend of Srinivasa Acharya. Please come and help. Ramchandra Kaviraj understands actually what Srinivasa Acharya is doing. He's actually searching. So he also sits in meditation, and he also goes in that lake. And at last, in one of the lotus leaves, this nose ring is stuck. And he finds out and hands out to the Sakhis, and they hand it to Srimati Radharani. And both come out of the meditation, and both are in ecstasy, and others are wondering what happened. So this is one pastime which is there in the Goswami's life. Of course, sadhakas, ordinary sadhakas who become qualified to Raganuga sadhana practice, they are able to internally at least stay in Vraj mentally and absorb themselves in chanting. And then the other internal details, it is between the spiritual master and the disciple. But these three examples are a classic example to understand what is this practice of Raganuga Bhakti, Sadhakas Deha and Siddha Deha, both, Tat Bhava Lipsuna. Okay. Any questions, any clarifications anyone has? No questions? Okay. So we have to take 2 more classes to finish this section. Oh no, 6:50. Yeah, 2 more classes. That's it. So today is what? Today is Saturday. Huh? Okay. So next week we will finish this, and then we'll start with Bhava Bhakti. Bhava Bhakti will require 4 classes, hopefully, and 2 classes for Prema Bhakti. So we are looking at 8 classes now, exactly 1 month now from now. Okay. So we'll wind up here. Shri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Rupa Goswami Pad ki jai. Hare Krishna.